Welcome to the Moto Moves podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the Moto Moves podcast. This is your host Bianca, and today I have a very special guest. This is Jeannette Garcia, and she is the author of Battle Scars. She is also a veteran, and she wrote her memoir and speaks about many traumatic experiences during her service time. And so I'm just really happy to have her as a guest and excited to share stories and open up the dialogue about many controversial things that, experiences that we go through in the military that people really don't, that they shy away from speaking about. And as you know, my goal is to, expand that dialogue and create support for those of us that are survivors. And so Jeanette is doing the same thing. So hi, Jeanette, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy to have you.
Me too. It's so nice to connect with somebody who resonates with my story and is a powerhouse of a person. So I'm happy to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you. Yeah, when you announced your book, I like automatically purchased it and not knowing what to expect, of course. And I think almost all of it, I could resonate with from like the time that you announced you were leaving to almost the very end, and I don't know, I just had this connection. Actually, I've read it twice. And I had, and so there's just a lot of things that I was like, okay, little experiences, even working up to leaving to the military that I felt like were very similar between us. Um, but anyway, would you like to give us a little background about yourself and your service?
Yeah, so I'm a first generation American. I was the first one in my family to join the Army. I had two cousins who joined the Marines, and I chose the opposite branch.
Yeah.
Um, I was I was 21 when I joined, so I was a little bit older. I joined as a military police officer. I was stationed in Fort Wainwright, Alaska, and from there I deployed to Afghanistan as part of a female engagement team. So, a female engagement team is a team between 2 to 3 women who would go and support the infantrymen to speak to the women in Afghanistan since the men were not allowed to. So, we did a lot of searching, a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings with the community, with the women, and all that goes along with war.
War.
So when I came back to the States, I got a PCS to Fort Riley, Kansas, and that is where I ETS'd out of as well.
Okay. Okay. And you served 4 years?
5 years.
5 years. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't know if you know about me. I don't remember if I told you, but unfortunately, I never deployed. Um, and although I was never opposed to it, I think that was one of the issues between me and my mom when I wanted to join. And she's like, "You're gonna deploy, and is that what you want to do?" And and I was like, "Well, it's my job. I mean, if that's what I
Yeah.
have to do, right?" And so, but I also joined, I was 20 when I joined. So
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, similar. But for me though, my mom just didn't want me to. She wouldn't sign my contract at 17, so I had to work up the courage to defy her, right up in a super Hispanic household, like, oh,
Yeah.
you live in my house, you gonna do as I say. But no, like kind of similar as well. I was older than most, I guess, when I joined, because most everybody joins straight out of high school, I felt, at least for me, like
Yeah, a
all
lot
the,
of people were out of high school in my basic. I
yeah.
did have a lot of older people though, so it was like a good mix.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel, for me, I feel like I was probably one of the older ones, but
We had a
Whatever. I did it
42-year-old
too.
woman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Her
that's
name, I
cool.
don't know if I could say her name, but not like anybody would know. Her name was Johnson.
Yeah.
And she was like this, she was 42, super, super thin, like little lady. And we were just like, what are you doing here? But
Yeah.
we were like, she's CID. Like, she's not.
That's crazy. I wonder, oh, what is the, I thought the cutoff age was way younger than that, like 34?
Depending on the branch. Yeah.
Oh,
So
really?
Army's was 42. I think it still is.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought it was like the same all the way around.
Oh
Oh,
no. Yeah, the Marines is really like a lot lower.
I know. I think Air Force is too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mm. Well, interesting. I learned something new today. Uh, yeah, back to your book. So what inspired you to write your book?
Um, I wanted to share what happened to me. So I never reported anything, and I think that's important to say like right away because I was afraid of the stigma of a woman screaming rape or say that her husband hit her and stuff like that. I was very hua, as the military would say. I was great at my job. People looked up to me, people respected me. So I was embarrassed that those things happened to me. So it wasn't until I got out of the military that people started knowing that these things happened to me. So I started sharing with my friends and my family. And it was almost discouraging at first because a common thing that people do unintentionally is blame you,
Yeah,
not knowing that they're doing it. So what they do is like, oh, my husband hit me. Like, what did you do or say?
yeah,
When I got raped, is like, oh well, why did you put yourself in that situation?
yes,
So then I stopped a little bit. And then I was like, you know what? It's not like I'm telling them like specifically who the people are. I'm just telling you what happened to me because I needed somebody to know that this happened to me and this is probably why my personality is the way it is now. Um, so then I started sharing on social media and it was like little by little and like people that were my acquaintances, they weren't like my friends, I guess. They were like shocked to know that I was who I was and that happened to me. And I don't want to say I was okay, but I just have a really like fun personality.
yeah.
And they didn't know something was actually wrong with me. So I started getting traction and then I built a website called Surviving After Trauma. And I gave people a space to share any trauma they went through on my website. And there's like a spot in my website that has people, men and women, sharing their traumas with me anonymously or they put their names. And I was just kind of in shock that they didn't tell anybody. So then I started doing public speaking because
Awesome.
I wanted to keep sharing.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like developed little by little.
Okay.
And I knew I was making an impact. And I don't do it to get my face known, but for the issues to be heard. Because when the issue with Vanessa Gillian happened, the whole
Yes.
world knew.
Yeah.
And the sad part is they only knew because she died.
She died. Yeah.
That's the only reason. But there's women like you and I and the women listening that we have the same stories, but thank God that we are alive. So people need to hear our stories also because it shouldn't take the death of a young woman to open up your eyes. And now if you say her name, this was in 2020, 2019.
Yeah,
We
I want
don't,
to say 2019.
yeah, no one's talking about her now. But her sisters, they're fighting. They fought in the legislators in the Capitol to get a bill passed, and it was just passed earlier this year. And I applaud them for standing up for us because that's really what they did is stand up for all of us. But
Yeah.
we should all be a voice. So, and it was part of my healing process to start sharing the story. It really, even every day, every time I share it, something about it might trigger me and I might cry, but it's just awesome that someone's listening finally to what we have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I feel like the more we talk about it, as it's hard, as it's difficult for us and it's difficult for other people to hear, once you get past that difficult part, right? That knot in your throat, that unsafe, that paranoia, whatever
Yeah.
it is that triggers you, it's like it's it hurts less, right? And then the fact that you know that you're connecting with other people also helps that process, I think, for us and for those listening and connecting with the story. And I think the important part is, like, for me, when I read your book, I mean, I don't know how many times I was like, yes, that abs me, like, and I just felt like I am not the only, and I know that that's why I started this journey too, right?
Yeah.
Um, but everybody's stories are so different, but at the same time so similar, right? And so finding that similarity, you have this instant connection and you feel a little less alone and a little less damaged and a little less hurt, right? And I feel like that's how I felt as I read your book. As I turned the page and I connected to one sentence or a phrase or something, it was just like, yeah, absolutely, that's how I felt, that's what I thought, that's what I went through, and I think that our voice is our most powerful weapon. And like you said with Vanessa Guillen's family, I mean, look how far they went to make a change, right? That's no longer going to benefit not them nor their sister because she's gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way we can do things, right? Like using our voice, um, connecting and becoming a force together, because who else is going to do it for us? It, you
Yeah,
know?
correct.
Yeah,
And
it hasn't been done yet.
no. And like so like what I like my sole purpose, like if I could say like one thing is like my sole purpose is to empower other women or other people who have gone through the same thing to speak up, take back their power, and realize that they're powerful. Because the one thing that I work on daily is not being sympathetic to the victim mindset because I hate, look at, I empathize with people that I know that gone through what I've gone through, but I know that they are so much more powerful than the story that they have in their head. And I also understand that the process is different for all of us,
Yeah,
but I want to empower them to take back that power that whatever it is that they lost, that they're afraid to go out in public or go to the doctors and it's like a male or go to the cash register and they can't talk to a man. Like I understand and I want to empower them to not feel that way. Like I want them to feel great again. And I know it takes time. It took me years. This happened to me in 2011, you guys, and this is 2023 going into 24. So I know the process isn't easy, but I hope that people know that when I am tough, it's because I love them and I want to empower them.
I love that. No, I love that. I think even in today's society, like, to say, like, you want to empower a stranger, you want to connect with someone, like, you have love for certain people that you don't even know, right? I think people don't I think a lot of people don't understand that. I think that's something, as veterans and as service members, we understand, right? Because we create like this bond and this love for each other, and so we go through so many life-changing experiences that we learn how to love a stranger, right? It's like,
Yes.
and we empathize with each other, even though we might not know each other. And I think that for us, that's that's something that is easier for us to do and to want to share. Um, I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm sure other people can too, but I feel like for us, it's easier to 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 want to take that role, right? Of
Yeah.
like being a support system and empathize and give love and say like, I'm here for you no matter what you need, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
we had the training to do it. We had to love one another. We're gonna die for each other if
yeah,
it came to it. So
yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And so, like I said, as I was reading through your book, I saw a lot of things that, did resonate with my experience. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about military marriage
Oh,
and
yeah, let's go into that.
and how we like to just jump in there. We just like dive in, and it's just, and everybody, I mean, most of us, like if you
Yeah.
talk to any veteran or service member, they, I don't know why we do that. We just fall madly in love, hard, quick, and it's like,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's like marriage is the first thing. You know what I mean? Just, you're engaged? Oh, yeah. When? Last week. You're married now? Yeah. How? I don't know. I met this guy and just worked out, I guess,
No, it's so true.
And it's everyone, like I'll be on social media and I see the memes, right? And
Yes.
and I'm just like, it's funny, but it's not funny.
I know you would tell the young privates, okay, don't go to the strip club and come back married.
They do. And
But
that's
they
who they
do.
choose, you
I
know?
know.
And it's like, why? And you have like very low pay. You have like it's just not ideal at all. Like,
I know.
but
It is not.
and we do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so tell me a little bit about for those that haven't read your book, tell me a little bit about that experience for you.
Oh man. So I didn't say this in my book because I thought it was like kind of rude, but I was a bitch. Like I was a total like I thought I was hot shit. So I didn't care. So when I met my husband, like for the first time, he was on a date with somebody. And I was like, I don't toot my horn, but I'm telling you that I was like young, okay? I was like really hot and I thought like I was the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And I walked up to them and I was like, "Oh, like hi, introducing myself." And I go, "Are you with this?" She was she wasn't chubby. Like she was like just thicker, but I was
Yeah.
again rude because what I'm going to say is really rude. Are you with this fat girl and you can have something like me and she could hear me. Like I'm saying this in front of her and he goes,
Yeah.
well, that's rude. And I was like, well, I'm just saying, and I walked away. Like that was my first impression with him. And I tell everyone, I knew that day that I was going to marry that man, but I never saw him. I didn't get his name. I didn't get his phone number. So I met him again. He ended up living in the same barracks. He had just came back from Iraq. So I met him on the day, like the second day they were back from Iraq.
Okay.
And like a couple weeks later, in processing, his whole unit moved into the barracks. I was a brand new private, and they were playing beer pong, and he goes, "Aren't you the girl that was so rude at the bar?" And I was like, "Yeah." And
Girl,
after that,
yeah, that was me.
that was me. But after that, it was like both of us head over heels for each other. We were inseparable. I don't think that I will or have ever loved anybody the way that I loved this person. Like he
Okay.
was everything to me. So, I mean, yeah, I think we dated for like 3 to 6, maybe 6 months. I want to say it was like 4 months and he
Okay.
proposed.
Yeah.
So
Sounds about right.
it was just quick.
Sounds about the right time frame. No, just kidding. Okay. And so, how soon after you guys got married, or actually, while you guys were dating, did you feel like um there were things that you should worry about as far as like your relationship or his personality?
No.
No.
It's not while we were dating. We honestly had the most fun I like have ever had with like a person, like a
Okay.
man. We traveled, we explored Alaska. We always had something to do. He was very spontaneous in like making sure that I was having fun. Sorry, the sun's all of a sudden hitting me.
It's
Um,
okay.
we were always having fun, and we would like argue. I'm a little spicy, you know. I'm a Hispanic. Not that that makes
Yes.
all of us the same, but we're a little
Spicy
spicy.
Latina.
And but there was no red flags for sure, like before we got married.
Okay. And so, how soon after you guys got married do you feel like there was a shift or a change with your relationship?
It was, I want to say, probably 3 months in.
Okay.
So it was when he had to be a team leader to a girl.
Okay.
And I noticed that he was acting different. And every time I would question it, he would be like more aggressive about it. So this light is killing me. Hold on, let me just
You still look good. It's fine.
but after that it was that's when it kind of started is when we started bickering about it because we
Yeah.
were it was my jealousy egging on a situation that like I trusted my gut and at the time my gut was right. Yeah.
Okay. So, um, so you felt like he was being unfaithful.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Me too. Me too.
Yes.
Um, and it's funny how your gut is never wrong, huh?
Your gut is never wrong.
It's never wrong. Yeah, I tell my husband that all the time now too. I'm like, my gut, and not in that sense, but just in general, like it's like I'm never wrong. I'll tell him something about the kids, the work, whatever, I'm like, oh, I think whatever. And I just feel like this is gonna happen. Sure enough, never wrong. It just
Yeah.
like lingers there. And so I think that also like intensifies the reassurance that your gut is wrong when you've been through experiences like that, right? That are like traumatizing and very, very effective to your life. And so then from then on, you're like, you stick to your gut because you're like,
Yes.
when I tried to ignore it and I let somebody convince me otherwise, I was still right, you know?
Yep.
Um, yeah,
That's
no,
funny.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was like, that's funny because I just made a an Instagram video yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Like, trust your gut. Like, we have to, one, we have to trust God. If He's speaking to us, that's what the instinct is.
Yes.
And we question it because we don't want to look dumb. We want to look good. We want to present ourselves as like something that we're not because we're afraid to like speak up because our gut's like yelling at us like always
Yes.
trust your gut, always
Always.
just do it.
I agree. That's true. Because yeah, every time I ignore my gut, things go wrong. Every
Yes.
time, you know? And then I just have no one to blame but myself, because I'm like, I already knew. I knew. It's just in denial. I didn't want to accept it and deal with those consequences because usually when you have a gut feeling, it's about something important, right? It's never a gut
Yes.
feeling about like, will there be strawberries at the freaking grocery store? Like it's never like minimal crap like that. It's like it's gonna change your life for the good or the bad, right? That gut
Correct.
instinct. So I think that's the problem with us wanting to accept it because we know, right? Like, okay, if this gut feeling is right, that means I gotta walk out of here. Or,
Yeah.
or I gotta create a boundary or whatever the situation might be. And so I think that's definitely the hardest part of following your gut feeling. But yeah, so I was saying in your book, well, I like you I know you said that every time you confronted him, right? Like it would get
Yeah.
like he would get more and more defensive, aggressive, or whatever about defending himself. Um, which I'm sure created unnecessary, like big fights, right? Because at least that's what would happen to us. And so here in your book it says, like you would end up, with passionate reconciliation, which I think is always the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like you create like, because you're in denial and you don't want to accept it, right? It's easier to accept like, oh, we're gonna have this like makeup session and
Yes.
everything is gonna be, it's all blissful and like beautiful and like who cares what it was about? Look at the end result of this, right? Like,
Correct. Yeah.
and you create I think as for us or for me, for our situation, I felt like we made it a habit, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, right? So it was like, "Oh, something's up. I'm gonna confront him," right? And then it turns out into this big, crazy, like World War Seven, right? Like not even three. It's like it's crazy, right? Like the tension, like it's just insane. And then you end up reconciling, right? And it's like nothing ever happened. You forget about the issue, you ignore your gut, and then you never solve the problem. So then that issue just
It just keeps
stirs.
getting,
Yeah. So then the next time you have to confront that same issue, right?
yeah,
It's like, yeah, the explosion, everything is worse. But then it's okay because that's just how you learn to live with your spouse.
it is. Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny because the explosion was me, and he was kind of, depending on the day, he was like really calm, or it was just out of control, the conversation. So,
Yeah,
but it
there's no
all,
middle ground, right? It's
there was
like,
no middle ground.
yeah, no, I think so too. I feel like I'm kind of that way now, and I feel like these experiences have made me that way. I don't have like a warm. It's like cold or hot, right?
Mhm.
0 or 100. Because I feel like I used to be the more like trying to be passive and like, ride the waves. And then I think that because of that, now I've kind of become that way, which is not good. You
I know
know?
it's really, and there's always balance. And I think
Yeah.
it's, we just have to work on it because I've been single since. So, I mean, I have a son, but I haven't been in like a real relationship. So I don't even know how I would be. I feel bad. I feel really happy for the man and bad for the person that
Yeah.
I'm gonna meet because I don't know
Yeah.
how I'm gonna react.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you. It's hard. It's hard to remember like this person is not that person, right? Like
Yeah,
you're sometimes my husband, he tells me, like he's like, I feel like I have to pay for those mistakes,
yeah,
And it's like, unfortunately, right? Sometimes they do because it's hard no matter how much healing is a process, right? Like I'm still healing. Like, I'm way better than I was when everything was happening. I'm way better than I was even a year ago, but I'm still
mhm.
not whole who I used to be before all these things, right? And so yeah, no, yeah, you don't know. You'll never know.
I won't know till it comes up.
Yeah, you won't know until it comes up for sure. But so like, I was telling you like all these things that you wrote in your book I resonate with. So I know in the book you speak about this incident that happened at a gathering, right? You had friends over and he got violent. Did he get violent with you before that incident, or was that the first time?
That was the only time.
Oh, wow. Good. I applaud you for that. I wish I could
Thank
say
you.
that. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could hold all the women that go through that daily or multiple times a week or even once every couple of weeks or
Yeah.
months or whatever because God gave me the strength to leave.
Yeah.
I said once and done.
Yeah.
I did stay for a couple months afterwards, but I knew deep down inside me that I didn't deserve that. It was, I could have been dead. It was out of control. Alcohol was involved. He, because I speak to him now. So like we've talked about this whole situation and everything. And if you read in the book and I mentioned like the ending of it and how he like just like kind of like what did I just do? I don't like at that moment I honestly think that he didn't know that he did that. Like he just lost it. And I do. It was that we before probably like he's probably like pushed me or held me down or something, but not to the extent that I felt unsafe
Okay.
until that day.
And I know you said you had friends there and you talk about how, they helped you leave. But during I don't know, what can I call it, the attack, the incident, um,
Mhm.
were they still in the house while he was
No,
being,
they walked
no?
out.
Okay.
They saw it starting and they decided to walk out and not say anything, not
Not
intervene
try
or
to stop.
no.
Mm.
And they were
Okay.
his friends, so I don't know if that makes a difference, but
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like after that, well, they were his friends. Did they ever speak to you after that?
mm, um, one of them, I guess both of them did just to see if I was okay, but never to like the wife apologized. She did feel bad, but her husband told her like, "Hey, let's go."
Yeah.
Um, but no, I actually didn't speak to them afterwards, really,
Okay.
because how can you let that happen to me?
Yeah. No, I
You
agree.
know?
I agree with
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Um, I had an incident. So for me, happened multiple times, which I hate. And I get mad at myself for letting it happen so much. And I take I take responsibility for my part, like it takes two, right? So I
Hmm.
could have left. Like I said, you make it a habit, it just kind of becomes your lifestyle. Like, okay, then now he's sorry, and now we're all lovey-dovey and we made up, and so life moves on until the next time, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we did have one incident again, resignating. We had one incident. We had invited a couple over, right? Which technically is his work friend, right? They were in the same unit. And so we were going to have drinks and play Uno. And of course, alcohol, right? Alcohol
Yes,
has to be
always.
involved.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say always, but a
But I
lot.
mean, it has a lot to do with it at times, I think. And um, so they were going to come over for that. And so we had an incident prior to them arriving, right? Whatever, he's being a jerk. And so I was already pissed, right? And he was being a jerk and disrespectful and kind of being aggressive, right? Like pushing me around, stuff like that. So I was already pissed. And so our friends came over and she just found out she got pregnant that day. So she was like, I'm not drinking, you guys, like you guys can drink, but whatever. And the guys were training to deploy. They were,
That's not
yeah,
funny, but
yeah. So they had just done, so for us as McMass, it's the martial art training, right? So
okay.
they were gonna go, their mission changed because they were motor T, but then I guess they needed prison guards in Iraq. So they were being trained for prison guards to go over there. So they were like, yeah. So they were brushing up on like their martial arts, all that stuff. So then my husband at the time and her husband, they were like beat, like they were sore and they were just like, and so we're just kind of like teasing them. And so we're playing Uno, taking shots, of course, shots, not just sipping shots. And they started, right? Like picking on each other and they're like, "Oh, move the couches." And they start like
Oh my
wrestling each
gosh.
other. Yeah. Such marine activity, right? Like whatever. And so we're like cheering them on and they're like trying to beat each other up, whatever. And at some point he says something rude to me. So I was like, oh, okay, it's like that. So then I started cheering on his friend, right? And I was like, yeah, get him, whatever. He gets pissed, launches over the like across with his fists out to like punch. I was sitting on the edge of like on top of the couch, right? Like on
Mhm.
the back.
Yeah.
And he just lunges in front of them with fist out. And if I swear to you, like his friend got up and lunged behind him. If he wouldn't have grabbed him, he would have punched me in the face hard in front of them. And yeah, it's not funny. I'm not laughing because it's funny.
I
I
know.
just,
It's funny because I laugh when we talk about these things, but not because it's funny, but I just understand, I
you
guess.
know,
Like it's like so
and
predictable of these guys.
it's just like, dude, your friends are over. Like, what is
I
happening?
know.
And so then I mean, his friend almost like whooped his ass, right? Like he
Yeah.
left, he grabbed it, drunk, left. Um, his wife, which is my friend, was kind of like, this isn't the first time, is it? I was like, no. And then, they stayed there with me and, they're very nice about it. I was embarrassed, right? Because I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now somebody knows. Um, but I thought that's his friend and he works with him. So what are we going to do? Nobody's going to say anything. No one's going to report it. I haven't
Hmm.
reported it. And I think one of the issues for me at that point, I was not in, I was just a spouse, right? So I was like, if I report it, he goes to the brig, like, we have no income, I have no car, like, what do I do? Right. And then I'm the bitch wife that reported him because
Yeah.
that's how you get looked at, right? Those are the mentalities they have, and the stigmas, right?
Yes.
Because out in the Marine Corps world, he's great. He's a, he's a great Marine, always bragging about his wife, always having the guys over. There I am, so like, I was like, how do I even navigate myself through here? I'm alone. I'm like the outcast. Everybody here is on his side. And I was a Marine, so I know how things work. Right. So
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
I've been there. So I felt like I can't say anything. I kind of felt trapped, not only by my situation, but by the military, you know?
Yeah.
And so unfortunately for me, I wasn't ready to walk away at that point, even though our friends had experienced it and now they knew, you know? But I think I felt like it was just really hard to come to terms with, right? And to have to tell anybody. I was like, how do I tell my
Yes.
family? How do I tell the military? How do And by the way, everyone told me it was a bad idea to get married. Everyone. Everyone was like, no. Everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Everyone. They were like, not to that guy, don't do it. Don't my mom, my everyone, friends, even his friends, like
Oh man.
so then even then I was like, I don't have a face, like, it's embarrassment. And I shouldn't have been embarrassed, like I didn't do
Uh-huh.
anything wrong. But somehow you feel this shame and guilt.
Yes.
And so
I
yeah,
feel all that.
yeah, yeah. And but you were still in, and I'm sure, like, what was it like when you went back to work the next work day?
So he thought because he left to NTC the next day,
Yeah.
he thought he was giving me a prize because what I went through. So he let me drive his truck to work.
Oh,
And I did. I like took
okay.
advantage of it because we've had it and I never was allowed to touch it. So
Okay.
I drove his truck to work and I got out and I was, I had markings on my neck and I was purple in the face. and everyone knew, but because I never said anything, they couldn't really do anything. I was, we were in an MP unit. If I didn't report it, or if I didn't even say something, um, I remember my NCOs just like telling me, like, Garcia, you have to tell me, like, you have to say it for us to do anything. We can't do anything unless you tell us. And love is blind, and I did it in my head at the time, and now for different reasons, but I never wanted to ruin his life. It was one time, it was horrific. Yes, it was horrible. And at that moment, I was like, am I going to ruin his whole career and life and everything for me? Like, that's what I had in mind. So
Yeah.
I never told anyone. So, like, my friends were in my platoon and stuff. So they knew, but they didn't know,
Okay.
because I never said anything. So it was just kind of like a thing, I guess, that just kind of like lingered around.
And like when you told did you ever tell your family like right after the incident?
No, I told I told one of my friends. She let me live with her, and then so I when I got to basic, it was like three of us from Arizona left together, and we
Okay.
all ended up. We all showed up on the same day to Fort Leonard Wood. We all were in the same basic training, AIT, and we all 19 of us from basic training went to Alaska together and all
That's
ended up
cool.
in one platoon.
Okay.
And we had the most women in an MP platoon that people have ever seen. There was like 9 or 10 of us,
That's
but
cool.
5 of us were like best friends. Like,
Okay.
I think all of us were really, really great friends, but 5 of us till this day are like best friends. And at the moment, 3 of them knew, because I had to end up living with one of them. And two of them, the one I lived with, and then another one that was her best friend, I would go to work, come home, and just cry in bed all day. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. So they're the only ones that like I actually told. And they're the ones
Okay.
that got me out of bed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. I wish I had that I was like by myself out there. So I think, having support is so important. I think it's I think it's hard to know who's going to be supportive,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
because I felt like for me to tell my best friend, I remember when I told her, um, and she was very supportive, but she was far, and so I had no one, and I couldn't tell. I told myself like, if I'm not gonna leave, I can't tell my mom because
Yes.
then I'm gonna create a problem, right? So I was like, I can't tell anybody else unless I'm ready to leave because then they're gonna be like, then what are you doing? You know?
Yep.
And do you know if his family ever found out about that? No.
No, I don't. Oh my gosh, what happened? Sorry, that was like weird.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. So when it happened, I wanted to tell his mom, because family history, right? His dad used to do that to his mom, and she left him. And
Okay.
then years later, they got back together and they remarried, and the dad like doesn't do that anymore. So I wanted to reach out to her because I knew that history already, but I never did because I wanted people to think that he was perfect and great, and everyone loved him. I don't think anybody would have believed me back then, honestly.
Okay.
They would have been like, well, you're the crazy one, you're the loud, obnoxious.
Yeah.
I remember that. I think
Yeah.
that's why I had to explain earlier, like, who I was,
Yeah.
because I was like that to everyone. I would make grown men cry.
Okay. Okay.
So, but it wasn't till, oh man, when I told my mom, she just started crying. And she just was like, I didn't know. And I'm sorry that's because everyone gave me so much shit for getting divorced so fast. We got divorced within 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I didn't beat Kim K or Britney Spears, but I was, a
Yeah.
fast marriage. And I don't know if my mom was mad, but she didn't understand why we got divorced so fast. I didn't tell them. I made up like stupid excuses. He would tell people that it was because I didn't trust him to move to Florida and go to school while I was deployed.
Yeah.
It was just like we just made so many excuses around it. So when I finally told my family, it was kind of like shocking that that happened to me. My dad was very mad. I don't remember the reaction of actually telling other people, but like my dad and my mom were the ones that really stood out. And I have a cousin who won't read my book because he's like, I don't want to know anything about what happened to you. Like, that's not something that I would want to know. I was like, that's fine. Just buy it. Don't read it.
Yeah. Support me indirectly. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think it's really hard for family to know those
Yeah.
kind of things, which is why it took so long for me too to say anything. So I can't imagine, like, even as a mother now, like, I can't imagine for my kids to come and tell me if something like that were to happen. I'm gonna have a problem.
I know. And I have a boy. So I tell him because, I'm a mom and I punish him.
Yes.
I go, women are not allowed to treat you this way, though. I
Yeah.
do this because I'm your mom. But if a woman does this, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And you don't treat them that way, too.
Yeah.
Because he's 10 now, and people go, like, well, what do you tell your son? I go, well, it's not his dad. So it doesn't matter that way. But he hears it now that, like, I'm speaking about it and talking. Like, he wants to read my book. And I'm like, no.
Not yet. Yeah.
No, like that's like when you're older and you understand, you don't know those concepts. I have to tell my family and friends like this isn't for my nieces and nephews. This is for adults to read,
Yeah.
maybe 16 years old, but this isn't
Yeah.
for a child to read because I go into detail and I don't want to introduce a concept to a kid, that
Yeah.
they don't need to know that concept. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. Do you think that there's certain experiences that helped you be able to walk away so fast?
I honestly don't know what it was that I mean, there was nothing specific. The only thing that I could think of is that God really led me to saying, I want a
This
divorce.
is it. Yeah.
It was no like he was so great to me afterwards. We actually um I think I mentioned in my book, but we didn't talk about it. Like we acted as if it never happened.
Okay.
Um and I think he knew that I wasn't gonna put up with it because of the person who I was. Um and we were very cordial at the end. We loved each other and we knew that it wasn't going to work out. I wasn't going to let that happen, and I think he felt guilt from it too. um but like when I first wrote my blog, it was like years later he reached out and I've forgiven him. I wish him the best. He found God and he's doing really well. um but like before him finding God and going through his process, he wanted to show his girlfriend at the time my blog,
Oh, wow.
and he was open to sharing the experience that we had with somebody else. So I know that he acknowledged the pain that he caused me,
Yes.
and we kind of went through a healing process together afterwards. So I don't wish him like any ill, and I know people have a hard time hearing me say that because I
Yeah.
am friends with him now. But I do hope for that with everyone because we shouldn't hold that guilt and that pain or that like resentment towards someone, because it's so freeing to be able to just show them love and show them compassion because we don't know the child. Like, I think a lot of it had to do with his childhood, and
Yeah.
a lot of it had to do with alcohol. And we just, it was just a bad situation, you know, and some people don't change. And I understand that. Like, some people are abusers the rest of their lives, and those people should have consequences. Like, I should have reported him the first time that it happened to me. I
Yeah.
do regret not doing that. But I saw that God had a purpose for me not doing it. But I do, if you are in that position, leave, tell somebody, and if you feel like you need to tell the authorities, tell them. Like, I do not want people to think that because I had such a great outcome that that's the story for everyone also,
Yeah.
because people need to take care of themselves and be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think also for you, I think the fact that he took accountability and and acknowledged the damage that he made um in your life, I
Yeah.
think that helps with the healing as well, right? And being able to forgive.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that you're very lucky for that. I think that that's something beautiful to have, because there's nothing, I feel like I'm so big on accountability. And I think because, I mean, I've always been an accountable person. Like, I've always owned myself, kind of like you. Like, I can be not the nicest of people, but I can admit that, like that's just who I
Yeah.
am. I'm just very straightforward and I could be a bitch and people don't like that, or they perceive me to be that way, but because I'm
Correct.
honest and I have boundaries and I don't take people's crap anymore, or I don't think I really ever did, but you know what I mean? Um,
Yes.
but but I feel like the traumas that I have been through, the assault, domestic violence, and those people not taking accountability have made my sense of accountability that much more stronger, right? So
Hmm.
now I hold that against everyone. Like, I feel like everybody needs to be accountable for their rights and their wrongs, and not only for you as a, I want to say victim because I hate that word. But,
I know.
you know,
But we were at one point.
we were at one point, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, like if someone does me wrong, even the smallest thing, I expect accountability, and
Yeah.
vice
Well,
versa.
we're gonna take that away from your space today.
Yeah.
And all we do is are accountable for our own actions
Yeah.
because I think if we expect people to be accountable for theirs, we're never gonna move forward.
Yeah.
You know, like I learned this 2 years ago in a course that even though it was a work course, which was awesome, even though something went wrong because everyone did something wrong, what am I accountable that contributed to this?
Yeah.
And for victims, it's kind of hard for us to take that accountability in a situation that we know that we didn't cause, but it also gives us so much power to take accountability for ourselves, the way that you're saying.
Yeah.
And then, yes, they should be accountable for themselves also. But if we keep those expectations, we're gonna be miserable all the time because people don't take accountability for
Sure.
themselves,
Yeah. Yeah. We can't
and they
control what
never
other
and
people do.
yeah, and they don't forgive either. So a lot of people are like want that what's it called when they want someone to say sorry? What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, what's it called? Like it's like that comfort, not comfort, but they want the other person to say sorry so they could feel better. But why?
Okay. Yeah.
It's a word. Someone's gonna put it in the comments while I'm like, saying it. But
Um,
uh, but anyways, that specific word, I know everyone knows what I'm talking about. We only do it because it makes us feel better.
yeah.
And why? So we could relive it. So when they come back and say sorry to us, we could remember what they did to us. If they do say sorry and they come back to say sorry and they take full accountability, awesome.
Yeah.
But if they don't, Who cares?
Who cares?
You know that you're strong. You know that you could get past it.
Yeah.
We don't need that comfort anymore from them. Like they're done. They already messed up. We don't need to give them
Yeah.
more energy.
Yeah, that's true because of what's going to happen even if they apologize, nothing changes.
Correct.
Everything's still the same.
Yep.
Except for you. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. And so I feel too like that's why I have made sure that I'm accountable for
Closure.
my actions. Yeah, oh, closure. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
true. It's true. I think it's human nature. We always all want closure,
Yeah,
you know? Um, but you're right. Closure not just not always going to give us what we think it's going to give us,
hmm
right? So, I mean, I feel that way too. It's like an internal battle because I think about that too. Like sometimes I'm like, I wish, I had that. But then if I did have it, what changes?
Yeah,
Nothing. My experience is still the same. And at the end of the day, I don't depend on them for anything. So what does it matter? You know?
correct.
So yeah, you're right. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you I don't want to say what do you take away from this experience, but if you have anything that you have gained or learned, or I don't know, what do you think would be what you would say would be from this having the experience of domestic violence in your marriage?
Um, Now looking back over 10 years ago and seeing the little girl who I was, I would empower her to speak up and one, report it right away. Um, Tell my family right away instead of living with it for so long,
Yeah.
or not my family, my friend, somebody you could speak to, and um, look for the signs because I've read a lot of books and I've researched it, and I didn't see signs, but now that I look as an adult, I'm looking back. We were very toxic when we drank. We That's when the fights would happen. And maybe, I know that people love to drink, and that's I also have indulged in alcohol. I'm not like quiet about it. It's in my book. Um, watch yourself when you do drink, because that's when situations happen that when if you can't recall it, the cops can't use it almost. And you have to take care of yourself. Even though it's not your fault, you're not accountable for what people do to you. We could prevent it somehow.
Yeah.
So um, I am gonna write something to go after my book. I'm not sure if it's a journal or like a book to how I healed, but also like tips to how to prevent it, because you can't prevent a lot of things that bad happen to your life, but maybe you can. Maybe there is something that I could have done to stop the situation, or I could, or even like my friends that were in the room, they could have stepped up also and stopped the situation. So I I just know that I'm a stronger person that I was then. One, for leaving, and then for sharing my story
Yeah.
and able to empower people to speak up, because as long as I help one person, then everything in my life and it's sharing my story and being vulnerable about it was worth it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with that. And I'm for one, I'm one of those people. Like I'm absolutely 100% grateful for your story, for you having the courage to share it. Like I said, there's so many things in your book that I connect to, so many similarities. And it gives me some kind of comfort, in a weird way. I don't know if that's even the right way to put it, but it is comforting to know that there's other people that have gone through such similar things as I have and have survived and um, have come out stronger and and can be a functional person in life. I think for me, being a survivor of domestic violence, it did change a lot of my life views and perspectives in many things, in many ways, and I hate that even now, even the little things that I struggle with, I hate how much it's changed me because I feel like I used to be such a carefree, you know,
Yes.
person, and no matter how much I want to be just as carefree as I used to be, I can't. I still struggle with that because of those incidents, and so I'm just very grateful for you and your book,
Thank
and
you.
I thank you for that because it is scary, and sometimes you just feel trapped, and I think
Yeah.
being in a military setting too, I think that also gives it an extra little something, I mean, I'm sure anybody in a domestic violence environment feels trapped to a certain extent, right? I'm not minimizing that at all, but I've speaking as a, veteran and service member, and being married to someone in the service, and having that type of relationship, it really does make you feel a bit more trapped, I think.
Yes,
um
I agree. And I want to know, I want like military spouses that also listen to this. The book's for them too. It's not just about like the military, like even people that are not in military, like you said, experience these type of situations. And, we're also a voice for those women and men whoever you are that are in this, because I know men that have been in domestic violence
yes.
situations as well.
No, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It does not discriminate.
it does not.
It does not. Um, but yeah, and so is there anything else that you would like to share with us, or
Well, I want to say thank you so much for having me today. Um, this topic is very hard to listen to at times, but it's so important to keep speaking about it, listening to other people's stories, because maybe one doesn't resonate with you, but maybe the other one does.
yeah.
One thing I do now is PTSD coaching with people. So if anybody wants to reach out and I can help coach them, I am a tough coach. So if you are a little bit more sensitive, you might need the tough coaching also.
Yeah.
But yeah, get my book, Battle Scars. It's on Amazon. And my website is www.wesurvivedtrauma.com. The website's for all of us. It's not just about me. And I hope to be speaking to you soon again and having awesome conversations and a partnership with you and a friendship also, because I think it's great to have strong women who share something very hard in common to continue to have these conversations and get more eyes on it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a guest. I'm super honored. And we will be getting together for sure. We have so much more to talk about, and I would love to work with you in any way possible. Just like you, if I could one person, if I could reach one person with any story, any episode, any blog, anything, I feel like my life purpose is being fulfilled. So
Yeah.
I feel the same as you do. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye,
Bye bye.
everybody.